impromptu speech is the most challenging for Marielle. So this morning's speech will be a big test for her. She will attempt to fulfill her promise she made within the objectives of her speech to weave a red thread through her 10 speeches. Is that correct? A red thread through your 10 speeches? She's got her red bag and her red turtleneck. So here is her improv attempt at showing proof. This promise with speech number 10 is closing the red thread loop. So everyone, let's please welcome Marielle.
That's how I felt when we got Maggie, our dog, home 5 years ago. We got her at the pound. We spent half a day there deciding whether or not we were going to be suitable owners for her. She had a lot of issues. And for the first 2 weeks after we brought her home, my husband and I went, what were we thinking? We'll never get through this dog. We had never had a dog that had so little concept of being clean in the house. And she was 9 months old and she already weighed 40 pounds. It was January. To make matters worse, one of her issues was submissive peeing. Obviously, she'd been abused in the past. We couldn't touch her. Touching her was instant peeing on the floor or the carpet or wherever she happened to be. So we devised a plan. We had her in a crate, but we couldn't touch her there too. She would pee in the crate. So after a few mornings of multiple accidents and removing all the carpets from the house, I would get up first thing in the morning and get dressed with my boots on, my parka, toques, my mitts, and yell at my husband upstairs because she was sleeping in the room upstairs with us. She needed that kind of presence. I'd say, Hans, I'm ready. So he would open the crate and not touch her, and I would call her Maggie, and I would put her leash on at the door, but of course she would pee inside the house before being let out. After a few more days, I devised a new plan. I told Hans, I'm going to try this. I'm going to make a big lasso out of her leash, and when you release her, I'm going to catch her. I'm going to have the door open, and I'm going to catch her through that lasso and hope that she won't have an accident inside the house. So I called, Hans, I'm ready. And Maggie comes, and of course I failed, and I touched her, and she peed on the floor again. Eventually, I perfected my cowboy technique, and I managed for the first time after that 2 weeks to get Maggie to do her business outdoors. And I praised her lavishly. To make a long story short, Maggie today is the best dog we've ever had. She is amazing. And she taught me so many things. And where does my red loop come, my red thread come through all this? With my first speech, I had objectives of speaking without notes. But I added one more objective to the other objectives that were also part of that, was that I would try or attempt to thread a red thread through all 10 of my speeches. I'm not sure I've accomplished that, but here is what I did. In my icebreaker, I spoke about dentistry and dancing, and I spoke about dressage, but very briefly. In my second speech, I talked about dentists being dogs in bowling alleys. Not realizing at the time that if I felt like a dog in the bowling alley at St. Justine Hospital in Montreal, it was because dentistry was hogging the operating room, filling teeth for children, and knowing that tooth decay was preventable. In my third speech, I talked about leadership lessons I learned from my horse. Maybe if you remember that famous ride I took after the ice storm in 1998, and I managed to, instead of panicking and putting my horse and myself in dire danger, he learned how to piaffe that day. And for the following 9 years, I talked about that day as me having taught him to piaffe. But the truth was, my horse had taught me really good leadership lessons. To stay with the question and believe or see the good in the situation. In my fourth speech, I talked about 2 left feet. That it was really important for me to have a partner who could dance, who didn't have 2 left feet. And all along, I was dancing only with my left brain. And it was only when he told me about Joanne, who was so balanced and so light, and she followed every one of his mistakes. I realized, like, oh, dog. I was dancing only with my left brain. The right brain is so important in feeling what is going on and seeing the good in others. And then in my fifth speech, I talked about my stepdaughter teaching me how to trail run. Well, she just left yesterday. My house feels very empty right now. But she really put me back on track with my fitness. We did some more trail running. I thought she was doing yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I came back home and I could barely breathe. And my husband told me I was beet red. And then I went into teeth. I talked about teeth first, how I wanted to reform the health world with thinking about teeth first when it comes to health. Because after all, the mouth is a gateway to the rest of the body. And then I told you that funny thing with a PowerPoint presentation, all I know about teeth in 7 minutes, with interesting facts as how many millions of chewing cycles we do in a lifetime, and how much better our teeth are than any fancy cars that exist. And then I went in with speech 8 and 9 with what is my worth, what is yours, and finally in speech 9, where is the hope? Well, I think the hope is in seeing the good in others and connecting with others. And Maggie taught me a lot of hope because I had to train her without ever physically touching her. I had to train Maggie with my mind. And she has probably become my best mentor. So the red thread is about tying everything together in our lives, removing the walls between the compartments of our lives, so that the learning can be applied everywhere and be beneficial to all. That's my red thread. I hope I inspired you with this, but totally impromptu. Thank you very much.